Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming. So today is UN Day of Social Justice, and we're going to discuss today how inclusive education can promote social justice for us as disabled people, but for us all to create a socially just society. Social justice is really important for disabled people, especially now, like in this, well, it has always been, but now when people are really struggling to meet very, very basic needs in a rich country as we are, it's really raw. And what is social justice? I guess we all know here we don't live in a socially just society. And I'm not going to quote all stuff at you about how many people, how many disabled people live in poverty, how we are deprived of resources, how we're told and pushed to kind of get on with it without really looking at fundamentally what is wrong with our society when we were literally forgotten, or even in, well, you could call it in different ways, but we were forgotten during COVID, for example. Well, the policy makers and everyone forgot about our rights. It's still not about our rights and a real equity for us. So real creating conditions, recognizing that we are starting from behind, that we have extra barriers. So creating conditions for us to flourish, but also just to have our rights respected and be equal in real sense in this society. We also probably need to remember that disabled people are a very diverse group, and different people experience poverty and oppression in the same way, but also in a different way. So if we think about, if you are, for example, a child of migrant workers who came here with no recourse to public funds, you'd have a very different, unfortunately, type of education journey and support compared to a disabled child, I don't know, who is born in a quite wealthy family who can push things around and create things for them. So things are different for different people. And today we're going to discuss how inclusive education can help us promote social justice. So our first speaker was supposed to be Lucy, who was going to give perspective as a parent, but she couldn't make it. So she sent us a statement, which Michelle, if you kindly could read for all of us.
Thank you, Svetlana, and I'll try my best to put across the message what Lucy Bartley has put in a statement for us. So Lucy is a parent of a disabled child and has been actively involved in the work of Alfie, and her child went to mainstream school and has been through the whole system, and also is in college at the moment. So Lucy says, social justice and decent life for all. This is the message of 2023 World Social Justice Day. Isn't not that much to ask for. World Social Justice Day was first established in 2009. The purpose of the day is to promote social justice, which is defined as a fair and equitable distribution of resources, opportunities, and privileges within society. Today is an occasion for people and organizations to consider the obstacles standing in the way of social justice, the progress made, and the way forward. So what are the obstacles as I see them? As a parent of a disabled young man, child, and as an ally of disabled people, what barriers are getting in the way of disabled people having equity of resources, opportunities, and privilege? I believe that poverty of opportunity leads to poverty of outcome. Segregated education, poor housing, lack of good support, lack of time, barriers that prevent access to and participation, lack of supportive network, relationship, medical model thinking, misappropriated resources, i.e. resources that are invested in the wrong things. She goes on to say, for example, my son Samuel was recently unable to watch a film at his local cinema because the lifts weren't working. The manager said, we don't have much demand to use it. Samuel is at college and there is no current course in his area of interest and expertise that is available for him. He is unable to access level 2 without pre-exist English and maths. So I had to find a music tech tutor for him. A friend's nephew is in the first year of teaching training and he has mild physical impairment associated with CP, cerebral palsy, and has just failed in his teaching practice as a direct result of being a bit slower in the classroom. Told he has to repeat the 6 months and pay again. He was given no additional support. In my current role, organising support for families, I regularly encounter families with disabled children in overcrowded, unsuitable homes who are socially isolated, children excluded from mainstream education, where the mother is being forced into reluctantly opting for segregated provision because they are told that this is where the expertise and resources are to meet needs, all of which actually leads to further family isolation. What about the solution? What do we need? One, community solution are that local and everywhere, not just in pockets, that provides access to housing, education, activities, shared lives, and shared resources, inclusive communities that are open and welcome to all marginalised groups. Lucy goes on to say, for example, the Nourish Hub in a community space offering warmth, hospitality, and work opportunities using leftover donated meals to create nourishing meals for everyone is welcoming community space, accessible to all. Barrier-free, as well as creating job opportunities. I'm able to further support this by inviting our families to come and eat, share, meet each other, and so the community and the vision grows. 2, I think about a radical solution of investing with others in a home that is intentionally designed to become an affordable shared home for people who are isolated, who may not have the options of traditional family. We need intimacy, company, opportunities and suitability, who need meaningful work and activities where hospitality and a sharing of resources and skills occur naturally. And 3, an investment of resources into inclusive schools, inclusive community, inclusive housing, and into establishing participation, providing the support, the adjustment, etc., that people need. And lastly, laws that uphold and that strongly promote social justice and human rights. That's from Lucy.
Thank you to Lucy for writing this, and thanks to Michelle for reading this. Something that really struck me the most, I guess, in this is about kind of some radical approaches. We won't achieve social justice by just trying to fix existing system. We need to change things completely. And talking about movement, we need move to next speaker, who is Andy Green, who is from Disabled People Against Cuts. So Andy has been campaigning for our rights for many, many years. Andy, it's over to you.
Thank you for that, and thank you to Alfie for the invitation to come along to the I've been around, I think I'm nearly 21 next year, so I've been around there a lot more years than I care to remember. So yeah, just for those of you who don't know DPAC, Disabled People Against Cuts, we're a user-led campaign network of disabled people, and we really focus on civil disobedience and direct action as a strategic choice in terms of creating spaces for disabled people. So I think on my particular role in the last few months and kind of for the rest of this year really is leading a project around trying to organize people as a response to the latest anti-protest laws, which have been imposed over the last couple of years in the forms of the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act and the Public Order Bill seem to be act going through, and various other bits of legislation which are a threat to not just disabled people but any community across our society in having stronger voices and organizing themselves into communities of resistance to defend their rights and services. It's really interesting because I think we've all, for the first time since the end of probably of World War II, had a global experience that we can point to in one shape or another post-COVID. And it's a real moment in time. And I think it was an unveiling, particularly for young people who very much saw the pillars and the fabric of our society ripped apart before their eyes. The things like the world of work, the world of education, access to schools, access to health services. These kind of things that we were told and they were told were written in stone were soon ripped apart, and the world was rewritten very quickly. And a lot of solutions that we were told were beyond our reach or not doable were suddenly were doable and were done almost overnight in some cases. So young people are going forward now, and they've seen that actually the world can be ripped apart and rebuilt very quickly when it suits people. And I think what they've seen in that is that actually the deal that they thought they had with the rest of society and all of us really, in that we paid the bills, we kept our heads down, we contributed, and in return, our society was kept safe and secure, and we progressed, and there was infrastructure and management and all of these things. And that deal was one-sided, and people have seen that now. And I think people want more, and people are starting to step forward to create that vision and that aspiration of what that might look like. And I think one of the key things that's coming out of that discussion is that we need to really start changing how we talk and think about disabled people, being disabled people, but also we need to have a different kind of conversation with the wider kind of public and how they think and talk about disabled people. Because I think we've been forced into a lot of defensive terms and terminology over the last 10 years, which is completely understandable under austerity, under Brexit, under COVID, and all the sustained attacks that have been coming and that have been rolled out. But our gains were most when we were aspirational and when we were vision building. And I think we have to regain the initiative in that and really grab hold of that going forward. And us as disabled people have to kind of step forward and be brave enough to step into these spaces and really go for it and talk about ourselves as workers again and neighbors and contributors to this society rather than people who are passive recipients and life goes on over our heads. So I think we have to start reclaiming that and stepping into that space confidently. One of the things that we've seen as a result of when we don't do this is the way that institutions appropriate our language without following through. They talk the language of independent living and personalized services and self-directed support and all of these fantastic terms that have come out of the movement without actually having to follow through. So language is really important. And we have to capture how we phrase what our vision of society is in a way which pins institutions and processes to the mast and commitments from civil society, from the governance, from our organizations, but also those our allies, to make sure that the language comes with commitments to change and how we are going to do that. Because it's only under those terms that we've been the most successful. And if we start with that, then we can start to develop, I believe, that the tools and resources that we need to start having that discussion, start identifying what the solutions are. Until we have that true and honest conversation about the kind of society we want to build, then we can't start to put those solutions into place. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andy. Yeah, really important about setting the vision and us remembering that biggest developments in our rights that were achieved for us as disabled people were through civil disobedience and us really standing up and having a vision. And inclusive education is a big vision. Okay, so our next speaker is Haq Ismail. He is from Choice and Hackney. He leads a project on advocacy rights and employment. Okay, over to you then.
Thank you, Svetlana. So I go way back. So, 28 years when we started, I was working in Newham. So we were helping disabled people with campaigning, with advocacy and access issues. So in those years, I've seen quite a lot of change and a lot of challenges. The movement has been strong in some areas. Then there's been, with this systematic approach of breaking down the welfare state, and austerity and successive Tory governments have just made it harder and harder for disabled people to, achieve social justice, equality, diversity, and to be, who they want to be. Because ultimately, as disabled people, we just want to be able to live our lives, to be able to contribute to society and lead fulfilling lives and not be in poverty. So these are the things that we've been asking for a long, long time. But as Andy mentioned, with things like COVID and things like austerity and the changing nature of the workplace and all these kind of things, every time there's some kind of global event, it has exacerbates the impact on disabled people, and that's why we are all still here and we're all committed. So in our way, at Choice in Hackney, we're a localized organization run and controlled by disabled people and helping people in Hackney with their housing. We're tackling poverty, with benefits and social inclusion, all of those things. My project has been going since 2009, so that's the Advocacy Training and Employment Project. And from the very start, what we tried to do is to sort of focus on disability rights. We're focusing on employment, which is a big thing, because as disabled people, we're not really expected to go out there and seek meaningful employment. We're sort of meant to be passive recipients of services and go to day centers and things like that. So what we really tried to do is to get meaningful employment for disabled people. I mean, confidence is a huge area. That's something I've struggled with for many occasions in my life, when I was always led to believe that it was my fault that I was partially sighted. Went to segregated school for the blind and partially sighted, had no options at the age of 11. When I was a child, I was told I either stayed at home or I went to a special school. I was taken away from my family, my peers, my friends, my local community. So I have, deep sort of memories about what that was like. So we've always had a commitment to doing these kind of things. And if you look at the local percentage of how disabled people are employed, it's the job centers are only achieving about 4%. And that's not really meaningful employment. It's not something that's going to lift people out of poverty and be able to go on holiday, or to get a mortgage, or these kind of things. So with our project, what we've been able to do is to run at about 40% of disabled people finding meaningful employment or starting their own businesses. About 16% go on to further education, and about 15 to 20% will become active volunteers and board of trustee members of charities. So we've really tried to kind of break the mold, sort of shatter the illusions of what disabled people, or what they think that we can do. When barriers are removed, when we are living the social model of disability, then disabled people can achieve so many things, and we'll continue to do that. And this is our 14th year now, so since 2009. And we've just recently heard we've been successful for another 3 years funding from Henry Smith. So we're very humble and we're very pleased that we can carry on this project and move forwards. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hat. And it's really, really important point about segregated education, breaking your links with community, and just instilling this idea in you how you are inferior and how you need to kind of have low expectations, I guess. And it's really important that the work to support people build their confidence and skills to find good job is done by DPO, because that's when support people to understand and believe that we are truly kind of equal members of this society and should be getting everything that other people are getting. We just need a different approach and different kind of support and access for all and resources to help us do this. It's really important that this work is done by Deaf and Disabled People's Organization. So now we heard from veterans, and this is something amazing about Alfie's events, because we're gonna now hear from much younger generation. So our next speakers are young people. So first is Yewande, leads young people's project at Alfie, and I'm sure I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, Yewande, from a young person.
Hi everyone. Well, I'm new in post. So I lead the Our Voice project. So we're just getting started. But what I'm going to speak about is mostly Alfie's past and present work with young people and how that's sort of linking to World Social Justice Day. So when I was putting together research for what I'm going to speak about today, I must admit I wasn't too familiar with World Social Justice Day, but as I was researching, I saw that there are 4 principles that are foundations for World Social Justice Day. So those are equity, access, participation, and rights. So we know from our work at Alfie that we've been doing for such a long time that disabled young people don't have access to an inclusive education system. So this is a human rights issue, and it also is a social justice issue, because when you don't have access to inclusive education, it makes it more difficult, as other people have mentioned, to participate fully in all aspects of society, for example, having a job and gaining future employment. We currently have a curriculum and assessment system that is not accessible or, being made to be differentiated enough that is inclusive of disabled children and young people. So therefore, a lot of disabled young people are having less chance to stay in school, and that has an impact on life chances, because the less chance you have of staying in mainstream system, you become more segregated, and then you end up being more segregated later in life, and this leads to a lack of opportunities for independent living. And many young disabled people also want things like access to their local community, like everyone else, leisure activities, recreation, things that they are not currently getting. To underpin the point about, the fact that poverty is a big part of social justice. If you're a disabled young person, you're more likely to experience poverty or come from a situation where your family might be on a lower income because of the extra costs that come with being a disabled person in regards to things like equipment. And also another big thing is a lack of acceptance around disability, and a lot of young disabled people experience discrimination and negative attitudes. And also I was thinking about the fact that this project is called Stronger Voices. We know that disabled young people have strong voices, but they're just not getting the chance to use them a lot, whether it be sort of within movement or outside movement, because sometimes people are a bit worried or unsure of how to work with disabled young people. That could be maybe because of access reasons, not sure how to include them, or maybe not being sure about their politics or the language that they might have or have access to. But I think that it's important to meet young people where they are and, you know, give them a chance. I think if that hadn't happened for me all those years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because someone, you know, was willing to give me that chance and, you know, overlook the fact that I didn't necessarily have the right language. I didn't know what the social model was, but, you know, that was okay. They still wanted, Alfie still wanted to give me the chance to use my voice. And we know from movements like Extinction Rebellion and Black Lives Matter that, you know, young people are a solid foundation to those movements. Society, when we come back to World Social Justice Day, needs to start listening to disabled young people and giving them the platform to get into leadership positions. If we can treat inclusive education and the lack of it as a human rights issue, then things such as independent living and employment, you know, that will follow. And then I hope we can be a few steps closer to social justice for disabled young people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yewande. Thank you for putting this in the frame of equity, access, participation and rights. And thank you for reminding us we really need to make an effort to meet young people where they are and support them to have their voice heard and kind of be more inclusive to make, and it's true, young people are bedrock of many movements, and we need to definitely, our movement needs to be more inclusive of disabled young people. So our last speaker, but not the least, is Amelia McLaughlin, who is a policy and research lead officer at Alfie.
Yeah, thank you for that, Svetlana. I wanted to very quickly just cotton on to some stuff that Yewande was saying as well, because that was incredible love, and it just sparked loads of stuff in my head, so thank you. I wanted just to add, as I've had a personal experience this morning of having to advocate for myself as a disabled young, in quotes, person, I think it's really interesting that in my morning medical professionals are really interested in my job, in my health, but did not once ask my level of education. Now, as someone that has a degree that really helps her in these kind of medical situations, I just thought that was really interesting, that education was not part of their checklist. So I very much informed them of my education and how actually this was the course of treatment we were taking. And I would like to hear their counter argument, which luckily they didn't have. So I won that. But I think it's really important that young people understand that education is not just a confidence builder, but can really help you in advocating for other parts of your life, not just whether you have kind of social care or not, but actually seeing you as a whole person and being able to communicate that effectively to people that may have different opinions of you as a young person. So I just wanted to add that to Yewande's little thing, because I thought it was really important. But in terms of Alfie's work, we've been very busy behind the scenes doing lots of things on this over the past few weeks. It's been a bit chaotic, but I wanted to kind of highlight our work in the Newham campaign specifically, and the excellent work that Catherine's been doing in terms of putting comms out. So if you're not aware, there seems to be a bit of a backtracking or reversal on Newham's previous stance on inclusive education, to the point where they are now opening new special schools in the area or planning to. As a response to that, we have contacted the council and local authority, and we have put out some press. Again, complete thanks to Catherine for that. And we are trying to start a dialogue with the local authority over this. We are still kind of in communications with that, so we don't have any set dates, and I don't want to preempt any conversations with any expectations. But we also are in the midst of planning a kind of march and a gathering in the area to promote kind of knowledge and understanding of what is happening in the area. It's worth saying as well that we are aware that this is happening in other parts of the UK as well, and so we are keeping an eye on where this activity is going and what we can do in a joined up perspective to really push this forward. So yeah, that was a really quick overview. So thank you for that, and thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks everyone for their brilliant presentations or speeches. There's a lot to think about, and I'm sure a lot for Alfie to think about and kind of work on and all of us actually to work on in the next few months and years.